had your face-offs with the Department of Justice and government regulation. Do you have faith that Congress can put together an appropriate bill for new financial regulation that will prevent these types of blow-ups, as Charlie calls them, from happening again?
Well, the financial regulations are always a work in progress. They'll make some improvements. They'll go overboard on some things. It's not an area I'm an expert in, and I don't think it's the critical thing, for these next 4 or 5 years. I think they will do some of the right things. It was interesting. Sheila Bair came out saying that pushing the derivatives out of the banks might cause some problems. So even experts seem to disagree on this one.
But you fought for making sure, Warren, that your derivatives, at least the existing contracts, would be grandfathered in so they wouldn't have to have collateral put up if derivatives were put in there. In fact, you had Dave Sokol of Mid-America, one of the Berkshire businesses, speak to Senator Ben Nelson of Nebraska. Charlie, did you know that Warren was having Senator Nelson involved in at least hearing your side, Berkshire's side of that?
Well, sure. If you have an outstanding contract to buy a house for $1 million, and Congress says we're going to change the rules so that you have to pay $2 million for the same house, they're going to change the contract retroactively? Of course that would get the attention of somebody like Warren. Of course he doesn't like it.
But it didn't.
They stepped on his arrows.
and the sanctity of contracts in addition.
Yes, and the sanctity of contracts too.
But they turned you down for now.
No, the bill as written would not allow counterparties to demand collaterals. I understand it. Now, it's 1,500 and some pages, and I haven't read it completely. But what it would do, it was allow the Secretary of the Treasury and or a commission, I believe, to change the rules retroactively on contracts. We say that's okay with us as long as the difference in the value between having a collateralized and uncollateralized contract would be paid. Otherwise, it would be a windfall for the Wall Street firm on the other side.
Charlie, Goldman Sachs, Warren absolutely feels they did nothing illegal. You said that you would have voted with the two members of the SEC who said don't bring SEC charges against Goldman Sachs. Yet, you also said it's hard to find enormous social utility in what Goldman Sachs was dealing in. What did you mean by that?
Well, a big derivative book. The idea that if there's $30 million worth of some security outstanding, you can create a derivative contract so that you artificially create $500 billion of the derivative. It's just crazy. It would be as though I could go around Omaha buying insurance on other people's lives, having no other connection with them except I wanted to gamble on hoping they would soon be dead. What?
I don't let them buy insurance on my life.
No. In Los Angeles, there were two old ladies that would pick up people in Skid Row and buy life insurance on them and then run them down in alleys and hit-run accidents. After all, I do come from a place that is vigorous and inventive.
You got to watch old ladies.
But there's no reason why two old ladies should be allowed to buy life insurance on people in Skid Row, and Wall Street has created something that's very similar to this, and it has the same sort of disutility.
So what do we need to do, Charlie, with this legislation if it comes out and is being crafted right now?
Well, if I were doing it, I would enormously restrict what the banks and investment banks can do. I think we've proven they won't control successfully a lot of their people and will create big messes. So I think the people have to be controlled from the outside.
You talked about it as a tiger cage.
Yes. It's ridiculous when the tiger gets loose and causes a lot of problems to blame the tiger. What kind of a man is naturally going to arise on the floor of a commodity exchange? He's going to be a tiger. If he's successful, he will get a lot of power. You got to have better tiger keepers. You can't change the tiger.
Warren?
He knows more about tigers than I do.
You spoke very vituperatively about a lot of things too, but you also talked about how you were very interested in the too big to fail concept. Should that be entirely eliminated, Warren?
We can't eliminate it, unfortunately. I mean, even if you have a clearinghouse, the clearinghouse then becomes too big to fail. If you have lots of interconnected transactions in a huge financial society, you're going to have some institutions that are too big to fail. It may drive people crazy and drive me crazy, but Freddie and Fannie, were created by Congress. They were too big to fail. Congress created them.
and Congress regulated them.
Yeah, and Congress regulated them, and they're still around. And Congress doesn't know what to do with them, but they are too big to fail. I know that. So it's very hard to get too big to fail. I would like to make it too painful to fail for the people that run these places. And the CEOs of the places that turned out to be too big to fail and their boards, none of them have really gotten killed by what's happened. And the shareholders have gotten killed. I mean, anybody thinks there's moral risk with the shareholders of somebody that owned WAMU or Citigroup or you name it, AIG. There's no moral hazard there. But the managers, they have not changed the rules in terms of what happens on the downside with the managers. And you've got to change incentives to change behavior.
Well, Bill, in the technology world, compensation is dealt with in a completely different way, isn't it?
Well, the technology world was very heavy on stock options, and now it's shifted somewhat to share grants, long-term share grants.
Is that a better idea?
Well, you have to make sure they're long-term. Otherwise, you get executives thinking about the stock price and the quarterly earnings in a fairly big way. When they put the $1 million limit in on compensation, that started a shift where equity, either option or straight, became a huge part of executive compensation. And I think you can argue that's part of why it's gotten so large, and some of the excesses in terms of the short-term